Hey, what's up everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so talk about the NBA a little bit, just get a little thoughts on the trade now that it trickled down from the New York Knicks and basically the Toronto Raptors, and what I called right away a fleecing of the New York Knicks. And now I feel the exact same way. I listen to everybody's argument. OG Anunoby is a fantastic defensive player, taking on the best defensive player every night. I've heard it. I heard that. I get that. I think he may be washed. I'm telling you guys that I think he may be washed. If you think he's going to come in and be who he used to be, for which I don't... Listen. Homie missed like 30 games this season when he was in his prime, okay? And now that he's exiting that prime... I don't think he's the same guy. Now, you may ask him to do the same things, and he may on occasion be able to do some of those things. But if you're looking for him to be some lockdown every night guy, I don't think that's who he is right now. Now, maybe he becomes that again when his conditioning comes around, but where has it ever come around? He's always recovering from some type of injury. And so that's my energy with him. Good player. His skill set is fantastic. He can help you on both sides, catch and shoot, defend, all that. But with the injuries having piled up as much as they have, what does New York expect to receive from this guy is my question. Now, R.J. Barrett, I understand R.J. Barrett's contract was probably a salary dump. That was working to the price tag. Didn't understand that at the time. I understand it now. So I temper my frustration with the return from New York, given the fact that that is not a positive asset. But when you consider where you're sending him, yeah. Plus, I listened to Pee Wee the Plug, Pierre, whose podcast was really good yesterday. He broke down some very specifics on what R.J. Barrett's game is and how it didn't really fit with the New York Knicks because he doesn't take a lot of dribbles. That's to be worked into the equation because a lot of times he would be the guy that's supposed to be taking pressure off of the other stars, and he couldn't do that because he could never do any dynamic plays. It's the same thing we talk about with Taurean Prince. He's catch and shoot guys that can't put the ball on the floor, and when they do, good things don't usually happen. It sounds like R.J. Barrett may be one of those. Catch and shoot guy that doesn't have the highest catch and shoot percentages. Still developing to a degree, not very consistent. I never was the huge R.J. Barrett fan, but I know he can fit in a certain system. I know if you give him a fantastic point guard, he's probably going to be somebody that works best off that pass first point guard. With Scotty Barnes now on the team that he's on, him going back home to Toronto, fresh new look, fresh new team. We saw what he looked like for the Canadian team. It's an entirely different team than he's been for the New York Knicks. So I think R.J. Barrett has fantastic skills that have to be just honed in by the right system. And maybe Toronto could put that system in place with a fantastic passer like Scotty Barnes next to him. So I'm optimistic you're going to see a better R.J. Barrett, even though that contract is not a positive thing to have for really anybody, now that I understand it. Malachi Flynn, fantastic San Diego State player. Went straight to the Toronto Raptors and hasn't done a whole lot with them or for them. From what I understand, over the last couple of weeks, he's been starting to show some pop. He's still developing. I've heard a lot of bad things from Toronto fans. I don't know what to say. I don't know enough about him, honestly. That's about as much as I know about Malachi. I remember when he first came out, I did some homework on him, and he seemed to have some nice skills, man. He seemed to be able to be someone who could contribute to a basketball floor, just a little small, but, you know, he was in the range of a Peyton Pritchard when he was first drafted, somebody you think could do some things, but ultimately hasn't had them opportunities. I don't see them coming with New York. They got too many guards already. Even with quickly going out, they still got too many guards. And with DiVincenzo now capable of scoring 38 points, he had his career high a couple nights ago against the Pacers in a loss. You know, I don't see the minutes coming for a guy like Malachi, but just the same, maybe some opportunities can come in New York that maybe didn't come in Toronto. And with Precious Achiuwa, he's just a guy who still needs to further develop. From what I understand, he has some issues putting the ball on the floor. I was listening to a podcast from a Toronto fan who was frustrated with him, didn't really like his game too much, but said he could be a pretty serviceable power forward, role-playing guy if you just need some points off the bench. He had some issues offensively, definitely some issues defensively, but his game is offensive. And I remember scouting him back when he was a Miami Heat, and he has some athleticism, good size, offensive skills to hone in. So I like him, but he just can't stay healthy from what I understand, and didn't really do a whole lot in Toronto to make you feel as good about him as you did in Miami. So Precious Achiuwa, I don't know, man. The New York Knicks are basically doing that trade specifically to get OG Anunoby, and I just think he might be damaged goods, man, when it really comes down to it. And of course, Immanuel Quickley, I told y'all, you put the ball in Immanuel Quickley's hand, he could be your best player. I think that. He can take a bad team and make them solid. You put him on the Wizards right now, and he going to make them a much better team because he going to do a lot of work. He going to do a lot of stuff. And so for me, it's like, because I know Immanuel Quickley is so fantastic of a player, I really genuinely believe all they had to do was trade quickly and could have probably got OG Anunoby if they weren't going up against Masai Ujiri. Like, because it's Masai, he gonna make you overpay for anything, which is why you don't do no damn trade with Masai. But because of Quickley's talent, you have to understand what you have if you're New York. And even though you don't want to trade him, or rather you don't want to keep him because you don't want to pay him, which is understandable based on how their team is constructed, I still don't think you need to give him away in that trade a whole 2 months before the trade deadline. You got a long time to have to figure out how to showcase him. And then from there, use him. And my thing is, when I got a player like Quickley, and I got 2 more months before I have to trade him, God willing, what I'm thinking doesn't happen. But what if Brunson goes down? If Brunson goes down, you're going to wish to God you kept Quickley for at least the next 2 months. That way he could play his value up while Brunson's out. And you could trade him for double for what it is that you've traded him now. At the very least, everybody knows he's Quickley and going to want him at the trade deadline. It ain't like they're going to let the trade deadline pass with him out there and not pull the trigger. Somebody's going to pull the trigger. So I just felt like the New York Knicks they had to have valued Anunoby far more than they should have in order for this deal to get made right now. I would have waited to do this deal 2 months from now. The same deal would have been on the table. And your pieces probably would have been worth more if the Knicks continued to play. So I'm not one to trade Quickley. I pay Quickley. I don't trade Quickley. I trade somebody else. And I keep Quickley's money in hand. And I keep him as my backup guy. But if he's going to price himself out the game, which it sounds like he did, then trading him is the only option. Problem is, I'm not about to trade him for some solid role players and OG Anunoby, who's about to be a solid role player. Got about a minute and a half left of being an all-star level player. I ain't doing that. But I understand his skill set. And this is something I didn't get a chance to say. OG Anunoby's skill set. Hey, buddy. Hello. Hey, friend. OG Anunoby's skill set. Hi, buddy. Hey. What's up? Hey. Happy New Year. All right. Had to say what's up to my dog friend. So, OG Anunoby, the good thing about OG Anunoby for the Knicks is that because he's a two-way player who's more solid in some areas that otherwise complement their players, I can see why they value someone with his skill set and his experience, given the fact that he won a championship with Toronto, even though he literally didn't play a single second of their final series. From what I remember, he was hurt for the entire final. So, and most of that playoffs, I think he played in the first half of the season, got hurt or something like that. So, but that's the story with OG. He gets hurt. That's the point with OG. You can't count on him to stay healthy for 5 damn minutes. So I'm out. I'm out on OG Anunoby. I'm in on his skill set. You find me somebody who can do exactly what he does, and I'm going to value that player. But not the way the league has valued him over the last several years. Absolutely not. 5 picks for OG Anunoby last summer. Hell no. That's craziness. And to a point, I'm not trading away 2 young players for him at all. I just don't. I value his skill set, his two-way ability, which is hard to find. Lord knows a Laker fan. It's hard to find guys who can do both. But the price tag that he was set at by Masai Ujiri for the last several years has overrated him dramatically, in my opinion. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he's a net positive for the Knicks system, as opposed to a guy like RJ who just didn't fit. And a guy like Quickley, who they're going to lose anyway, regardless of how you slice it. They're going to lose him anyway. So you don't want to lose him for nothing. And then you look at the role players they got back from Toronto. I'm not horribly down on Precious Achiuwa, but judging by what it is I heard about him, I should be, kind of. And I'm not horribly down on Malachi Flynn, but judging by what I heard, I should be, kind of. You know what I mean? That's what New York got back. I don't like the trade. I don't care who likes the trade. I don't like the trade. I feel like I can get that trade later for a different price. I can get OG at the trade deadline for a different price. Essentially what I'm telling you. I believe I can get OG at a different price at the trade deadline. And when I do, I feel like I can probably send quickly somewhere else for double the price. I don't have to take back whack role players. I can take back some good role players. You know what I'm saying? If I just wait a while. And so, to a point, I'm gonna say this, and I don't know where I stand truly on this. I don't think I want a backcourt of Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel Quickley, but I don't think I'm targeting Jalen Brunson in the first damn place if I have Emmanuel Quickley. Am I crazy for saying that? Jalen Brunson is as good as Jalen Brunson is, and if I have to choose between the two of them, I'm choosing Jalen Brunson in a nutshell. But if I already got Quickley, am I looking for a guard like that? Nah. That's how much I think of Quickley. I'm giving him the ball, and then I'm bringing other stuff to him that's going to complement this team that I have as a vision with him being my point guard. That's what I'm going to do. But see, the problem with that is Knicks already had Rick Brunson in the organization, so they knew Jalen. They knew how good he was getting over the years, and so they already had plans to bring him in well before they probably even drafted Quickley. But for me, it's like Quickley's a homegrown guy. You drafted him, and now you gave him away for little to nothing. Does that make you a better team in the overall scheme of things? If you think OG Anunoby is just going to be so good to get you a championship, along with what you already have or whatever it is you're trying on bringing to you with him, then yeah, maybe he's a big piece to a championship team. Do I honestly believe he's a big piece to a championship team for the New York Knicks? It depends on what they're bringing in. Depends on what they're bringing in. But just if they just don't do nothing else, of course not. It's literally, of course not. If this is all the Knicks are going to do, hell no. This is horrible. This ain't going to be good. And you're not even better than what you were before this. What you are is capable of spending a little more money. Good thing about the Knicks is they have a fleet of picks that they can trade to get anybody. So if they want to be big players for a star that comes up, let's say Anthony Edwards decides he just don't want to be in Minnesota inexplicably, some weird stuff, they could be the number one team to go after him with all the picks that they have. But I could argue in a situation like that, OG Anunoby is less likely to be somebody they covet than a guy like Quickley in a situation like that. So I just think I ultimately think the Knicks are probably making mistakes. It depends on what they do with the money, because they definitely didn't have the money to keep Quickley. It didn't make sense for that, and they definitely didn't want to keep RJ's horrible contract on their books. So that was good getting rid of that. But now it's going to be like, all right, you got to negotiate with OG. Is he an expiring contract? I think so. I think that was the point. Are you ready to pay him his $170 million or whatever he's going to want? That's likely going to be inflated because his value's always been inflated in this league. It's like, no, you don't want to pay that. Or at least you're going to find out you don't want to pay that. I think you're going to find out you don't want to pay that. So this is when you think you're getting something because it used to be dope and everybody kept saying it's dope even though it stopped being dope. That's what OG is, man, to be honest with you. It's like when people never upgrade their assessment of a player. They still think he's the same guy he was 4 years ago. That's he the best lockdown. No, that's not who he's been this year. Anybody that's on him in fantasy knows that's not who he's been this year. What he is a guy whose injuries are starting to pile up. That's what he is. A guy who you can count on to miss about 30 games a season. It's always hurt. Like literally always hurt. So for me, it's like, am I going to pay over the money for A, buddy? Am I going to pay for OG? Absolutely not. I'm not paying for OG. How you doing, man? Happy New Year, bro. So, no, I'm not paying for OG at that price. If it's going to cost me quickly, no, I'm not paying for OG. And look, if you want to take RJ Barrett back home, which I would have gave him a tax since he's from Toronto, I'm going to make them tax for that. You got to understand, they have a vested interest in bringing RJ back to Toronto. So I'm not giving them no passes for that. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's in their best interest based on what it is that they want to do market-wise for themselves. It's like, it's the same thing that the Jazz was otherwise doing to you about Donovan Mitchell. Like, we know you want Donovan Mitchell here because he's from New York and he's a fan. So it's going to cost you such and such and such and such because I know you not only want to bring him for your vision, but you bring him for your marketing. So it's like, You didn't take a page out of Danny Ainge's book. You did the opposite of what was done to you. It kept you from getting the player you wanted. But see, that's my vision on how much they should want OG Anunoby. If they think OG Anunoby's freaking the next coming of, Brandon Ingram or whatever player, then of course that's scared by the fact that they just value him that much. My argument is they should not. You know what I mean? So you can't tell nobody they didn't get the best player ever. You know what I mean? If they think he's that guy, they think he's that guy. But I'm telling y'all, OG Anunoby ain't never, ever, ever been what the league told you he was. Talent-wise, yes. Durability, reliability-wise, absolutely not. And that's the key. Just because a guy is great, really good at certain things that you really need on most teams does not mean he's that guy. It just means that he has all the translatable skills that make your team better, which is a wonderful thing, but not to be confused with the two. And that's the problem with OG Anunoby. He's a fantastic catch and shoot guy, a fantastic defensive player, won an NBA championship. All of those things make you want to overpay and triple pay. But I'm telling you, hell no. Not unless you have adequate backup players that can be in place for when he goes down. Not if, when. So that's my thing with him, man. No, man. Once these injuries starts piling up on a guy, he's starting to reach up into 30, 31, whatever age he is, and then injuries keep on piling up. Bro, no. No, that's the guy you say, all right, I value him, but I'm not going to pay costs for him. And so that's my thing. And then with RJ Barrett, it's like you had to mess up his value because you overpaid him when you shouldn't have. You told everybody he was untouchable back when you were trying to get Donovan Mitchell, which was utterly stupid. Although I could argue it was a good thing you didn't, because I wouldn't have given away all them picks for Donovan Mitchell. You're in a much better position with your picks than you would have been with Donovan Mitchell. Because I like Donovan Mitchell as much as the next guy, but he's not the greatest star in the world. Your pick cachet can get you the greatest star in the world. And so that's my difference in regards to seeing that. But in a nutshell, that's what held up the deal. They wouldn't throw in RJ to Utah. And my thing is, but you'll throw him in to get OG and a freaking Noby? What are we doing? So I'm just down on OG, man. Not on his skill set, not on his ability to make his team better or my team better. He can make a team better for the time he's going to be on the floor. But if I got to pay the exorbitant price tag on him that these GMs keep putting on him when they either ask for him or try to trade him from their team, I'm going to say he's worth about half of that. About half of that. And so for me, I would have made a nice little smooth trade for Quickly and send RJ somewhere else. And if they wanted to get or send them RJ and brought back him, and that's it. Wouldn't have been no pick equity going in there. Definitely wouldn't have sent out Quickly with him. None of that. If you want to take my young small forward for your injury prone fall forward, we can make it happen. That's how that works for me. Otherwise, you got nothing. And I'm sending RJ somewhere else. And I'll live without OG Anunoby. But see, the Knicks ain't going to live without OG Anunoby. So it is what it is. Now they got him. And they get to see whatever it is that comes of it. Maybe he turns back the clock. Maybe because he's in that system, he finds his championship way. I don't know. The skill set is great. He's going to help you defensively. But when he starts missing games, you're going to see what I was talking about. You're going to see. And the New York Knicks are sitting out there with McBride playing the small forward because he's out for 2-3 weeks with an ankle or a shin or something. You'll see what I'm talking about. That's what you're not paying for. You don't want to pay for that. But I'm not mad at them for getting RJ Barrett off of their books. Not at all. That was a good thing. Now that I've come to be understanding of what it is that he was paid and all that, because I had forgotten about that. That's what they went and did. Instead of trading him to Utah, they ended up signing him in the middle of trade negotiations, which ended up taking Donovan Mitchell off the books, off of their radar, making it so that Danny Ainge would spite them because he told them, you either give me RJ Barrett or you're not getting him. And they paid RJ instead, which, I mean, in true Knick fashion, just in true Knick fashion, just not the move, not what you do. And so they ended up cutting their own selves in that situation, and now they don't get RJ. for which I could argue you want RJ in a situation, you want not RJ, but Mitchell. Out on Mitchell is to which I can argue you want Mitchell, but again, keep that war chest full of picks and you'll always be able to get anybody. And I could argue all they have to do now is trade all those picks to Cleveland to get Mitchell now, because I don't think Cleveland's going to be able to keep Mitchell. I don't think so. Not in the long run anyway. So that's what I think of that trade, man. Now, I don't know if Quickly's in his final space. I don't know. I don't know that. The problem with the Toronto Raptors is that they're literally in a rebuild, and while Quickly is somebody you can start your rebuild with, him and Barnes, I don't know if him and Barnes are my vision. You know what I mean? Barnes is my vision. Quickly is definitely a piece for me if I'm doing things like that. But putting them together, put it like this. I want to put the ball in Scotty's hands, and I want to put the ball in Quickly's hands. It's only one ball. So that's my thing. I just don't know if he's the quite the complementary piece to Scotty that I'm looking for if I'm Toronto. Probably not not long term. Probably not. We'll see how it looks. I could be totally wrong. And they're both fantastic players to want. But together, when you got to pay them both big money, nah. But I've never accused the Toronto Raptors of actually doing anything really that great. I like Masai Ujiri, but I like him more so for fleecing other GMs. I don't necessarily know if I love the teams that he puts together most of the time. I don't know that I do. I think he might be overplaying his hand a little bit when it comes to holding on to Pascal Siakam. Depends on what he can get for Pascal. But I think he probably would have got more for Pascal in the past than he's going to probably get for him right now. I think Pascal's luster is kind of weaned off. You probably could have got a lot more for him maybe 2 summers ago. As to what you ain't done nothing since, so you probably should have did it anyway. As soon as they got Scotty, they should have moved Pascal for picks to start the rebuild properly so they didn't have that issue. So I think he probably overplayed his hand in the long run with Pascal kind of letting him decrease in value over time instead of just getting him up out of there as soon as Scotty got drafted and doing the rebuild outright. Probably should have traded OG back then too. Could have got a lot more for OG back then. So it's just a lot of stuff that I think Masai did. Trying to fleece people, sometimes you can put yourself in a position to let things drag out a little too long. And I think that's exactly what's happening with the Toronto Raptors. They just let that drag out too long. They could have very easily reset and maybe been in a position to be bad enough to get Wembanyama or something like that. But they didn't want to reset. They didn't want to break up a championship core, which was never really a championship core. It was just Kawhi Leonard joining the team and being crazy great. That was it. So once you get Scotty Barnes, you immediately start resetting everything if you're doing things correct. And they just too prideful, I guess, to do it. So now they got to trade everything else for pieces. And while those pieces are cool, it ain't going to be as cool as it would have been if they would have did it right away. Fresh off that championship when Kawhi left. So it's just stuff like that makes me look at Masai Ujiri and say, yeah, you're good, but sometimes pride can bite off the prideful. You know what I mean? It works when you're going up against weak-minded GMs, but it don't work when you're trying to build something and get the most for it right away. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. I think that. But Masai Ujiri's, he's definitely somebody I can trust to fleece people, though. Let me tell you, man. For that specific purpose. It ain't too many better. Him and Danny Ainge are the cream of the crop. They're going to get over on you, for sure. They're going to make you overpay for something. And if you ain't got no sense, if you don't really do your homework on what it is he's giving you, he'll sell you some garbage. For sure. I respect that. I don't have nothing bad to say about that, because if I'm the owner of the team, that's exactly what I want you to do, is give me the best deal and take advantage of all the weak links around the league. Oh, my prediction had nothing to do with Toronto Raptors. I'm just going to say this before I turn off the video. The Sacramento Kings do have some interest in Zach LaVine, from what I understand. I just pulled that out of my head on a random video because I thought he made sense to kind of upgrade their shooting guard position. But from what I understand, they're thinking the same way. I mean, you figure they wanted to pay for Beal. Beal's contract was god-awful, so why wouldn't they want Zach LaVine's god-awful contract? It doesn't even have a trade clause. It's a better contract than Beal's is. So it seemed to me that, he would be somebody that would be on their radar just off the strength of their willingness to do that. So it makes sense. And as I said earlier today, I say in this video, I think the New Orleans Pelicans really need a point guard. I really do. And I think they really don't need C.J. McCollum. Not at all. So I'm not hearing anything about them trading CJ McCollum for a point guard, but I definitely would. If I could get a DeJounte Murray or D'Angelo Russell, I'm going to do that because they really need one. They need one. They're not moving nowhere. Dyson Daniels ain't turning into that player. Kira Lewis ain't turning into that player. Alvarado ain't turning into that player. I like those guys as role players, but they are not a starting point guard for a team that's trying to win a championship. No, they're role players. So that's another thing with the Pelicans. I don't think they drafted all that great lately. I love the Trigger Murphy III pick for them, but like that Dyson Daniels pick is flopping. We gave them that pick. They did nothing with it. You know, that kind of thing. And I'm a Laker fan. That's our pick. They did nothing with it. So, you know, these are the type of things. Just look at the Pelicans and say, okay, man, Crapper, get off the pot, buddy. For real, because you got Brandon Ingram. Man, he's good. Not amazing. You got Zion. Yeah, he's good. Not amazing. So what are you doing with these pieces? Are you going to send them somewhere where they can actually win? Or are you going to bring yourself something that actually works? Are you going to be solid in no man's land with these guys that are just not quite that? They just not quite that. And that's coming from a Brandon Ingram fan, man. I really like Brandon Ingram, but he's not turning into that guy to where I'm saying, okay, now we win the championship, we moving. Nah, that's not what he's turning into, unfortunately. He's really good, but he's not great. And so at this point in time, it's like, all right, are they going to trade those guys while they have value, or are we going to pull a Toronto and hold on to crap too long, knowing that it ain't going to reach that ceiling? But see, for a team like New Orleans, maybe they don't care to reach the ceiling. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't care that they're not good enough to win a championship. Maybe they just want to be good enough to not have to rebuild. And if that's the case, then all right. I mean, if that's it. But I'm never, ever, as a basketball mind, I'm never thinking that's it. If you ain't good enough to win a championship, you're good enough to get off my team. So I can find something that is. And we're going to keep searching every couple years till we find it. Because that's how I move. So that's what I want to say, man. I appreciate everybody for rocking with me all year. Happy New Year to everybody. Be safe. BDF44. I thank y'all for watching. Bye.